making trouble on the map. So let's see if Weibo can do it in this game.
Let's see, Quax. We are into our Game 1 draft in the gaming battle. Bilibili and Weibo. BLG, though, they did select first selection on that red side. Weibo opted to go towards the blue side. So, classic BLG wanted to be ever aggressive even in the draft to get that first primary pick. So, Quax, as you see these bans flying out, a lot of Z-tier champions. You talked about the Rise, Bam, out of the way. Orianna, no Rumble. What are you looking at for this, I guess, R1? Because I'm seeing not really any of these classic bottom lane pairings challenged just yet.
I feel like if Karma isn't just slammed here by Weibo, like on the ban list, then BLG should take it immediately. Yeah, it's the most banned champion in the entirety of LPL. It's really interesting to actually see how the meta reads have evolved, even though we're only a few weeks into the split here, as Ashe going to just be the first pickup here. Ashe Seraphine likely going to be the pairing, unless Weibo want to try and deny it. This maybe does give over like the Pantheon Ahri if they want to try and focus up that top side, or if they want to maybe go the Corki Nami just as an immediate response.
Oh, okay. Well, this is a dangerous game to play. They locked the Lulu. That virtually locks in the Yunara. Interesting to see Weibo opt in to the Yunara Lulu lane. Eventually, right? They know they can pick Yunara later on, so they get this ins out now. But Quax, they're opting into the Yunara Lulu lane, into an Ashe Seraphine incoming. That ruined a Heartstuck Casterlo game this week for this exact matchup. I wanted to alt F4 the game for this exact matchup. So doing it into Viper and on right now, oh, what a shot call, Weibo. Good luck. That's all I've got to say.
Yeah, you're going to be constantly pushed up under your turret. I really wonder what value the Xin Zhao is going to get early, because this is more of a denial pairing than anything else. Ashe Seraphine plus Xin Zhao just gives him so much free reign to look for invades, and that is something that Xun is known for, right? I mean, he has pioneered the aggressive playstyle that every jungler is trying to emulate across the world. So just kind of leaving me perplexed as to, because you won't have that bot lane priority, how aggressive can you realistically look onto Xun early on with this Xin. But the Yunara going to be locked in, just completing the pairings here. Now, though, both teams have their solo laners yet to be picked. I think that Sion is still on the board. We've probably got that still up and coming. Jace has also been kind of a big meta development. I think that a lot of teams have been willing to just slam that, but it does leave open maybe a bit more aggression to be had in the top lane, because Jace is so... he needs to get ahead, right? He's got the damage, but very little else in his kit. Very little utility. He's not tanky at all. So if you don't get Jace ahead, or you don't give him a favorable lane matchup, what value do you realistically get from this champion? So if BLG want to go that route, we've seen Bin lock it in before, and he was very effective on it here in Split 2. The Gnar banaway does lead me to believe that maybe a Renekton is possible for either of these teams, as Gnar is the biggest counter to that champion. And I think it would be really good, particularly for Weibo, because Dominus just gives you so much space, and that's really the biggest commodity for a late game Yunara.
I'm glad you brought up the Jace point here, because I do think in this game, I don't see Jace fitting well with this Yunara Lulu scale idea for Weibo as much, maybe as a bridge champion, but with the range advantage and Ashe Seraphine brings, adding a Jace poke into that, maybe you land with, like, if Knight sees a Syndra angle, that's just so much space creation on its own. There's also other control mages that can do it, but I'm just thinking classic Knight champions, right? So you could create a really good, like, range-based comp that can play aggro into that mid-game and fit into BLG's all-press style that we know them so well for in the year 2026. Bin, though, of course, in his potentially best top laner in the world form, draws that double ban, no Mbessa, no Gnar, so maybe we will see that Jace come across here with that first pick. Weibo, obviously, are going to have that counter pick to them, so we got to look out to see which one of the solo lanes, Quax, they want to go after to allow maybe an easier lane for them going into this game one.
Aurora going to be the final ban here. Weibo now, I believe, probably going to pick mid lane on 4 here, I would imagine. Just because, okay, they're locking, or hovering rather, top laners. Yeah, Sion, I feel, is just the easy slam, giving you access to the Ashe Seraphine. One of the biggest difficulties of piloting Ashe Seraphine is that they are very gankable, they're very immobile, so this leaves it very possible for champions like Sion, who have that ultimate, to just visit on down toward the bot lane, try and cut off their escape route, and with no mobility, they can just get axed. So I think this is a good lock in here for Zika. Still does leave the Renekton angle open. Does also leave the Jace angle open. I feel like those are probably the two champions I am looking at here for BLG to lock. But if they just want to have maybe a wet noodle fight, the Cassante could be the lock. But it's going to be
more fun.
the Gwen here. And there we go. Yeah, someone in the crowd predicting it. Gwen here for Bin in game number 1 up against the Scion. So big favorable matchup. And now, yeah, I would imagine the Azir probably going to be the blind, unless they want to go for, like, the Ahri. I feel like Azir is probably your best bet here, just to pair well with the scaling you have existing on your team comp so far.
Well, Quax, you got to remember, we know Knight is so great at so many of these champions, but his antithesis is the Azir, so it's not shocking to see him go away from the Shuriman Emperor himself. But the Mel, I think, you know, definitely loses some scale value, but it does fit into, again, what I really like to see next to Ashe Seraphine, which is punishing snares, punishing burst with a range advantage here, and the Mel will fit into that. But boy, have Weibo put themselves into a pretty nice spot to kind of test something you want to see from them, Quax. We came into this draft saying you think Weibo struggled post 20 minutes. This draft from Weibo, they have to survive up to 20 minutes because once they scale in, Yunara, Victor, Sion, wow, can this comp really run some fights?
Yeah, and I mean, we've been seeing just such an insane form from Bin so far. Like, the first stand performance is what people will naturally gravitate toward because it was an international showing, and him winning finals MVP, I think, really put him back on the map for a lot of people who maybe only remember him for his, you know, shaky 2025 form. But ever since we got into Split 2 Slayer, I mean, he really has been the man. He has been Giga Bin. And so I feel like on this Gwen, he's going to be relied on to scale up and be the carry in a good matchup as well. This is definitely going to be favorable for him. And it's just a question of, will Bin outscale the Yunara Lulu? Which of these two mega scale champions is going to be the higher impact? But with Bin's performance and his form, just showing what he's got so far, I feel like a lot of people will naturally favor him to be able to run over this game.
We'll have to see, right? Because it is a interesting spot to be in for Bilibili Gaming with a Gwen for Bin here. Kind of goes against them playing to smash the game within the first 20 minutes and then never look back, right? You do need to give Bin some time. He is their kind of key scaling threat. If this game does end up going late, it's going to have to defy this Weibo comp that we think can really just shock and awe BLG at 3 items plus. Weibo still looking for the first series win, and we are onto the map. And I don't know if we have even time for Jiejie because Xiaohu's immediately stared up. Double tap stun comes down from Anand. Wow, that is a picture-perfect start for Bilibili Gaming, finding first blood, getting it on tonight, and they might be looking here more as they get the slow on to Hong. He has to flash another snare coming down here from Knight. BLG like to play fast, Quax, but not this speedy.
Yeah, Weibo are definitely going to feel the pain on that one. I mean, flash plus heal burn from Hong as well means that this Pantheon's going to have a very easy time. We can see that Xun is actually starting on enemy Raptors, so he is probably going to be looking to clear down. If they can try and chunk out this Lulu, they could potentially look for a dive angle. That could be very possible. We're going to get a replay here. So, yeah, what exactly happened? Did Xiaohu just...
Didn't expect bottom lane to be here, I guess, right?
Yep. Rooted, bone plating gone, double root, nowhere to go. So, still holds on to that flash, but, yeah, like I said, same can't be said for the Lulu. And instead of opting to just clear on down, he's actually going to look for maybe something mid here, just bullying Xiaohu even more.
Well, there goes that flash you were talking about. Does Xun want to match flash for flash to get this stun down? Why would you have to flash if you just chase him an enemy jungler? Xun still wants to do it on his own. Knight trusts his junglers so much that he's like, yeah, buddy, you got this kill secured. I got a wave to catch. And Xun gets it done. Second kill in for BLG. Second kill onto Xiaohu. And now Viper exerting his will, forcing Elk to flash away from a trade in the 2v2 bottom lane. And BLG are up to a 1,000 gold lead before we even hit 2 minutes 30 on the clock.
It's not just Knight that also trusts Xun, it's the cameraman as well. I mean, we panned away from that kill because they knew, oh yeah, Xun is going to get this one. There's no point. Let's just look at the bot lane. Maybe Hong dies as well, but he manages to survive But really solid start here for the mid-jungle duo of BLG. Shun does lose a camp, but because he got that kill as, oh, hang on, Knight.
Okay, so mid lane is just the one-stop shop for early jungle ganks. I mean, you're in heaven right now, Quax. Both mid laners now without their flash.
Yeah, so it does leave a very obvious route of attack for both of these junglers. Shun gonna get his first reset and pick up the fabled Ruby Crystal plus Longsword first buy that every jungler in the meta is currently going for. But we can see pinks coming through from Jiejie. He's maybe looking onto the red buff, but doesn't know Pantheon is also right there. Wind Become Lightning does get thrown out, doesn't spot Shun. And yeah, he's just going to be forced to give that away. He has no camps to farm, so I think he's just going to have to either take the back or trundle his way toward the bottom half of the map.
I'm just glad that Jiejie recognized. I hope he just clicked on Shun, saw that it was in his inventory, and was like, yeah, I never win this fight. So, good respect there from Jiejie. You called it. He's going to mosey his way down onto this bottom side of the map, which is interesting, right? Somehow, we're going to see Jiejie actually pick up a double scuttle through all of this, so that's decently nice, but he is behind the 8 ball getting those items, and he is going to have to, I believe, go to try and... Oh, I guess he doesn't want to reset his Krugs and Raptors just yet. He's going to go for his reset now, but that allows Shun to maybe invade once more or look for a regank onto a flashless Victor.
He's just charging those Qs, waiting for the empowered W potentially. If Knight lands a root as well, he can empower E and then maybe W. Yep, there we go.
Yep, there we go. Gravity field comes down. Stun lands here from Shun. But luckily, Xiaohu's close enough to the turret, and Knight does eat the stun from the gravity field. So Xiaohu survives for now.
Yeah, just what it does is it helps Knight push in that wave, gives him a good reset here, and allows him to rejuvenate his health and mana. But no mid laner, no problem. Shun is just going to keep posturing aggressively despite not having Knight around. Won't be able to really find anything, though. And now I think the game could potentially fall into a bit of a lull state where Pantheon is just looking to farm until level 6. You've got the prio in that bot lane. Maybe you attempt after taking these wolves and this Grump to go for the dragon spawning in like 10 seconds. But that could maybe be up in the air as BLG still don't have some of those crucial flashes on their mid and jungle.
They do likely have a bottom lane prio, like we talked about. I think Elk and Hong have done a decent job trying to keep the CS close enough. It's only a wave lead here, currently slated for Viper. So that's a decent spot to be in. But you expect Viper and On to consistently get shoved if you want to see Shun go for that early dragon. Instead, he's playing the BLG way, baby. We're invading. We're aggressive. We're up a level. We're up items. Why not? Let's see if we can find Jiejie. And boy, will he find him. Stun lands down. Doesn't have the full stacks of the passive up just yet. But boy, gets a huge chunk into Jiejie. And now he's going to turn his attention towards his Gromp that just spawned. Jiejie going to throw down a pink ward. But just like the red buff, I think he's going to have to let this one go. And he's also going to lose that valuable gold of buying the pink ward. That might be what really stings the most, Quax.
Yep. Gets the control ward gold plus the Gromp. So Shun not going to hit level 6 off of this, but you can see that top crab is very close to spawning, so you should be able to get level 6 off of that. And he's actually anticipating that Jiejie is going to come back topside. He's just waiting in the bush to bully him again.
God, maniacal. Oh, but Jiejie, he's like, hold on.
Jiejie has Tunneler, though, so there is an item advantage, but there's also a numbers advantage. Knight is moving, or at least posturing, toward that topside river.
All right, Shun's going to get rid of the second spawn of the top crab instead. So he'll pick that one up, likely for free here. Not going to use the smite. We'll get spotted as he secures it. Takes over level 6 off of that, so that's important to remember. As Zika will make his way back up towards the top side as well. So no dragon, but we should have Shun resetting there as we will reset our feed that has been viciously fighting our producer, quite like BLG viciously likes to fight Weibo in these early game sets.
Yeah, I mean, BLG just continuing to show their like really high octane style, not really giving Weibo any time to breathe. Quite literally Slayer from minute 1. And that just feels so difficult because we were talking about the importance of getting this Yunara ahead. We haven't had a lot of time to really look down toward this bot lane, but Jiejie has just been having his own problems this entire game and trying to put fires out in mid that he hasn't actually been able to give any attention over to the Yunara Lulu. Like, they have been in an isolated 2v2 against an Ashe Seraphine. That is not a position you want to find yourself in. You talked about the hard stuck Castelo experience that we had with this, and I mean, it's probably the same for them at this point. They're in a 2v2 against a poke lane. It's a terrible time.
Well, Elk, I salute you, my friend, because you definitely have fallen behind a lot less CS than I did. So that I'll give you credit for there, Elk. Still, yeah, it looks like he picks up a decent wave. Viper gets a better reset timer, so he will catch this bouncing wave coming in. So it should be about a wave and a half the Viper arrives at the advantage with. But right now, the big advantage we want to talk about for BLG at this point in the game isn't the fact that they should get this Dragon uncontested, Quax. It's the fact that we have that Grand Starfall online. We have that enchanted crystallized arrow. We have the Encore. We have all these big mid-game power spiking ultimates up for BLG.
And we can also see Weibo are looking to trade here, so they're going to also receive the grubs. Are only going to go for one. It looks like Jiejie doesn't want to too hard commit because a Knight is off map. You can also see that Bin has Prio, and with the Pantheon ult, like you said, yeah, it's just very risky to stick around there without the fear of getting collapsed on. So he's only going to get one. It's not going to help out Weibo too much. That's like a participation award at this point because although having the grubs would be beneficial to a champion like Sion, being able to get a little bit more plates, it's not going to do you much good when you only have one grub.
Yeah, not really going to provide a lot of value there indeed, Quax. But it's not Shun that's going to take any more grubs just yet. He's got top camps to clear. But it is going to be a path down here for Jiejie. Still, you talked about it. With the Yunara Lulu lane, you always really want to play towards the side of the map to make sure this Yunara can get a decent lane and scale up. And Jiejie hasn't really been able to do so. And now Elk's starting to suffer a bit more now. The CS lead's starting to grow. The plates soon to fall. Viper and On may be able to secure the second one before the wave crashes out to just stack even more gold through. And man, these volleys, these double taps from On just make it impossible. With Hong running out of mana rapidly, they're going to have to forfeit their position on this turret because what's that threat we were always talking about when we don't see Shun on map? It's a Grand Starfall. Works well for dives, so just going to increase this BLG lead.
Yeah, it's so difficult because you have basically no vision anywhere as Weibo past that river as Elk is staying. Shun might legitimately just Grand Starfall into that bot lane between the towers, but
it's Jiejie that's protect.
Yep. So does show himself, and Shun is just sticking around in the area. Weibo don't want to too hard commit because Elk.
Oh my god! I mean that's heal. That's a transcend dash coming out. Elk living on the wire here to try and at least stay competitive in the CS. He's going to stay for another wave. Shun is walking his way down as he eats another volley. Hong is going to get snared thanks to On. And there is no way they can stay here for another wave. Viper is daring them. Elk has to drop a wave at some point, and now he finally will.
I mean, personally, if it's me, I'm blind throwing that spear into that bush. Like, but Shun doesn't want to fully commit to it. Hog is actually going to stay in the lane.
These guys are crazy.
To pick up level 7, but now the reset timers are disjointed. Knight is being looked at here by Jiejie, but here comes the Grand Starfall.
All right, 2-on-2. Shun has the passive fully stacked. I'm going to flash right on Jiejie's head. He's using the Crescent Guard to get Shun off of him, but he does have to flash away from his Solar Snare from Knight. So both junglers going to end up trading that key summoner. But that should allow Shun, if he'd like to finally pick up those last two grubs that have been chilling after losing their friend. Hold on. Cross-map arrow coming down. Snipes on to Xiaohu if he doesn't have the reaction time to flash on over it. But another valuable summoner coming off the board here from a cross-map play from Viper.
Very, very close call there for Xiaohu. Does manage to live, but like you said, commits the flash to do so. On here as well, talking about the roams. We haven't seen too much of it from the Seraphine because Ashe Seraphine just trying to keep that push. It's kind of been the main theme, denying the Yunara resources. But off that reset, does manage to give Knight a little bit of health and sustain in the lane. Meanwhile, though, Xiaohu is kind of forced to stay without any mana. He's finally going to channel his back, but look at how much prio is being had here for BLG. I mean, it's enough for Shun to finish off those grubbies, so BLG are going to get 2 for themselves, and there's a minute before Dragon, so he's pathing down. This is just perfect map play from BLG. They will all be synced up around this bot side when the objective spawns.
It was a rough start here for Weibo, right? BLG pick up that nice little cheese kill to start this game off. They re-gank Xiaohu to get that lead. That's all nice, but what I'm glad you really accented towards the end of your point there. What makes BLG so scary right now, the world #1 team, is what they've done with that small lead through the pressure, right? Constantly forcing their opponents to drop waves, give up plates, give up objectives all across the map. That is what has us so inspired by this BLG team. It's what we were hoping for when we saw this roster come together when Viper joined coming into 2026, and it's just awesome to see it manifesting here at first stand, of course, and now backing up that top coming into split 2.
And look at just how many wards there are, by the way, on the bot side of the map in favor of BLG. I mean, it's lit up like a Christmas tree. Literally, there is nowhere Weibo can step, even close to the river, that BLG will not spot them. So Jiejie is going to be pinging toward the bot lane, but, I mean, Grand Starfall is available. BLG are going to have more than enough time to react to it, and a 3v3 might be happening, but it's a 3v4.
Yeah, Elk is going to cleanse the arrow as Xiaohu comes down, gravity field down, Viper and On both have to commit the flash, but the knockups do stack. Encore's only going to grab the support, but the double snare from On doesn't save Viper. He drops, but the trade comes out thanks to the solar eclipse from Knight. They pounce onto Jiejie. The Crescent Guard only going to buy him a couple fleeting moments as it drops, and he soon will follow. Viper dies, but it's not in vain. It's a Knight triple kill as BLG clean up the bot side play.
And again, BLG are looking for more. Xiaohu is going to be able to clear the wave, so I don't think they're going to commit to the dive on the Victor. Just going to instead turn on toward the Dragon, but I mean, this is just such a huge deal. Viper lives for so long. Knight is now 4-0-1 off that play. And we're going to get another look at it. So this just feels like Weibo really finally saying, all right, enough is enough. We have to punish this Ashe Seraphine. We have to full commit onto Viper, but it's an overcommit. Knight and Schooner on the flank. The damage from the Seraphine is enough to where they drop before the Pantheon and the Mel even get involved in the fight. And then it's a 2v3 Slayer. Jiejie's got nowhere to go. Xiaohu can't get involved in the fight. He's got no flash. He can't get out if he goes too far in. And BLG just with the better team play, and Weibo reeks of desperation, them trying to punish this Ashe Seraphine. Where was this aggression, 7 minutes ago, Slayer?
It's the problem with this comp, right? I mean, this is a composition. It feels really hard to make any action happen. You have a Victor in the mid lane. You're playing Yunar, Lulu scale into a range disadvantage bottom lane.
Jiejie?
It's tough to make. You have to find unique angles like Jiejie going after Viper here around the wall. Love that gank angle. Viper used both his summoners to make that play happen on the bot side, and now he gets caught out for free. There's a positive play for WBG.
Yeah, and Herald is the next logical move. You've got a numbers advantage. Bin is going to be TPing to this top side, but Knight is late. He doesn't have the teleport, but they're burning this down pretty quickly. I think they're going to be able to get the objective.
Shun flashes over. No, does not get the steal. Jiejie secures. He uses the Crescent Guard to get Bin off of him, but now Bin sets his sights on the rest of the backline. Snare comes across from On. His Shun gets pushed out of the pit thanks to that Arcane Storm. Elk flashes over one Encore, but he's got Bin to deal with. Snip, snip, go the scissors. Then they can't drop Elk. It's Knight with the solar eclipse that finds its mark onto Hong. But Shun now cornered, has Xiaohu to deal with, and the trade kills come across here for Weibo. They're starting to bite back in this one.
They commit the Herald, so it's not going to be able to get the charge in mid, but it's a good inflection of gold here for Weibo, utilizing that numbers advantage they got from the pick onto Viper, and then just forcing BLG's hand to fight them. This is kind of just the BLG way. They have to constantly look for fights, even when it's disadvantageous. I mean, this is kind of a criticism we levy toward them in split number 1, and we saw it a little bit here. Yeah, just a replay. Viper, nowhere to go with no summoners, like you said earlier, Slayer, and then the start onto the Herald. I was initially kind of worried that this wasn't actually going to go Weibo's way, but Jiejie lands the smite. On is just too disconnected. Knight isn't even here yet, so it's a big numbers advantage for Weibo. They're able to kind of chip them down before the Mel even arrives. And yeah, from numbers advantage and from forcing a fight off a pick, that is just a good macro play through and through from Weibo.
This game was treading towards disaster territory, so good on Weibo. A couple of nice plays there, thanks to Jiejie, who's been such a driving force, especially when you think back to that top 3 finish we keep, hampering down on from the Split 1 playoffs. It was Jiejie being that driving force, so they've basically cut the gold lead for BLG in half by this point, but that is not enough. They still need to keep this tempo up because that is a 2-item Mel on the other side of the rift right now. And yes, Quax, I want to make sure that you get your opinion out here. How gross does it feel to see that, proto belt or the Rocket Belt finished on a Mel of all champ. Hold on a minute.
Viper.
Elk is just walking Viper down. Holy. On saves
Oh,
him though,
no!
the shield and heal, and Elk comes up just a couple inches short on the 1v1 and gets blasted to smithereens by the now 6-0 Mel out of Night.
And you could see a little bit of a flustered reaction there from Elk, looking aggressively, but gets punished for it. Viper manages to live, and now Shun is in a 1v2.
Gotta throw up the Unbreakable as the Chaos Arcane Storm with the Gravity Field locks him in place. Jiejie finds that kill. Zika forces a flash out of Night with that Unstoppable Onslaught. The snare's gonna come down, but the Scion's pretty tanky. Jiejie flashing after On, follows it up with a flash of his own, and they get on to Viper once again. Zika gets trapped under the turret, but he's tanky enough to make it work. Weibo, again, with a numbers advantage, are taking these fights to BLG.
And they've got control of mid now, so they're going to try and, you know, clear out some of this vision that we highlighted earlier. BLG placed so many wards on this bot side. If Weibo can darken the map ahead of this dragon in about 40 seconds, they will be on much more even footing, information-wise, ahead of this dragon. And this is a dragon that they, frankly, need to win. Bin is now on 2 items. This Gwen is going to get progressively stronger in the game. So the scaling threats are starting to come online for BLG. You don't want the Soul lurking over your shoulder like that. As we do get a replay, Elk just, yeah, feels bad moment, gets taken down, not able to finish off the kill onto Viper. And then Shun potentially looking, I'm actually kind of curious why he decided to step up there. Maybe just looking to take more space, take that bush, but he does get punished for it. Knight is forced to flash. I mean, On here is also going to be forced to flash, so there's a bunch of those summoner spells being burned ahead of this dragon. Maybe Weibo, if they can find a creative angle like Jiejie has been doing over the course of the past 5 to 7 minutes, maybe they can deny this soul point from BLG.
Starting to have the items to try and compete in some spots. Elk has himself a gold lead. Jiejie has gone on to 2 items with that Titanic Hydra completed alongside the Sundered Sky. So there are powerful members of Weibo, but they just don't have the setup. They're having to use Zika with that TP shield to try and walk on in. The Dragon just getting started here for BLG, but Weibo have set themselves up in a nice position, trying to find a fight lane, and Jiejie's going to go after On. The Encore is going to hit onto 4 members across the whole fight. On is going to drop in on the front line, forces Elk to flash out of the pit, transcended with that wild growth as the fight goes completely chaotic. Jiejie jumps onto Bin, who's trying to dash himself out. The Solar Snare will not save him. The wind becomes lightning, finds that kill, and now Knight is completely pushed out of the fight. Shun with the Hail Mary to try and get the dragon, gets caught in the gravity field, and goes down to Elk. No members of Weibo dropping. They stop the soul stacking, and they're starting to bare knuckle brawl in this game number 1.
Late game Lulu, baby. The shields are just too much, and BLG were frankly too split to make a big difference in that fight. You could see that Knight was totally disconnected from the team throughout most of that dragon scuffle. But the big thing here, Slayer, soul point denied. The big objective goes the way of Weibo. We do get another look at this fight. Yeah, you can see that Knight
just never gets in.
Even though he's got the range, like, there is a point where now the frontline members of Weibo are too tanky, and the sustain from Lulu is just too much. Even though Bin finds his way onto the backline, like, Weibo find their way onto your backline as well. On gets immediately blown up. The health bars from Bin are just super low. Jiejie is able to look aggressively onto him because he's not able to assassinate anyone on that backline. And yeah, just fight going up again here for Weibo. It felt like they were more coordinated, more together, and BLG were too split to make a difference.
The goal lead at one point was about 4.7 thousand.
Yeah.
And we were at what, Quax? 14.5 minutes when that was? This is a huge comeback the Weibo have made, regardless of how the rest of this game plays out. Really well done to put themselves back on even footing, and a conversation that I thought we were never going to have, Quax, because not a lot of teams have survived early games going down to BLG. You kind of pointed it out. We have a Scion that's scaling up pretty well. We have the Yunara you just talked about that got the kill in the last fight. Xiaohu is on this Victor that will scale prominently as well. Weibo, if they have the setup for Baron for future Dragons, it's hard to bet against this comp.
And the fact that we're just stalling out the soul win condition as well for BLG, another 5 minutes, like, that's 5 minutes to get your scaling threats to even stronger positions. As On, the Storm is going to be Lumen over his head. He'll be taken down to about half. And that is a very squishy Seraphine. I mean, On's positioning was a big highlight that we talked about in the pre-show as Viper. Okay,
all right.
Kales comes out.
So still have the cleanse, so that's all right. Viper's just trying to cut down on as many of those cooldowns as he can. I do want to, take a moment to talk about itemization, if we have a moment here, Quax, because we do see Viper going for the Storm Razor. It is an interesting point with some of these, premier marksmen. Oh, boy. Hold on. Unstoppable Onslaught onto on the Arc of Ruin. Elk slow. Transcendence from Elk doesn't really matter. Zika takes up a couple of turret shots here. TP comes through for Knight, trying to cover for their bottom lane. They're buying time, though, for Bin, who is splitting like a demon. And, boy, does he get this whole turret?
He might actually. Maybe he gets punished for it, but you can see that Weibo don't fully want to commit to sending more than one member of the Gwen. Yeah, you're going to have to send more than one in order to deal with Gwen at this point in the game, and that'll give the green light over to the rest of BLG to just fully send it onto you in the mid. So they're not going to pull the trigger onto the Gwen. Going to give over that tower and also concede the mid lane tier 1 as well. So that's all tier 1s taken here for BLG. This will allow them to extend that vision line significantly ahead of these dragons. But the big thing hasn't been the vision, it's been the execution on the fights. And Weibo have really been showing up in that regard over the past few fights.
Without a doubt. They need to keep putting it together because a team of BLG's caliber, you slip up a little, they really can exacerbate that problem. You saw it right there. We were just talking about the gold lead. It was down a mere 400, but that one play, swing there from Bin, the turret's taken. It's back up to about over 1,000, and a lot of it is in the pocket of one of the best to do it in the mid lane, Knight, at about 2,000. This Viper is going to miss an arrow here, trying to get rid of that second cleanse, but Elk is going to be able to hold on to his own.
Yeah, we can see both teams are potentially fishing for picks, trying to utilize that Fog of War, but doesn't look like it's going to happen. Dragon up in about 50 seconds, but I'm glad that you mentioned that Knight is performing really admirably in this game, because Knight is a player that, while not necessarily underperforming, I think that people were a little bit surprised that he wasn't the main carry force for BLG at first stand. A lot of people point to Bin and Shun's overperformance of that tournament as the reason why they were managing to lift that trophy at the end of everything. And we haven't really seen a Knight pop-off performance since they got back into the LPL, since Split 2 started. So to see him pop off with the Mel, I think is going to sway any doubts about his current level of play and say that maybe first stand was more of an anomaly. And this really is just Knight constantly dominating once again.
Well, Quack, speaking on that confidence, nothing embodies that more in the game of League of Legends than a good old book you want to stack some pages into, a.k.a. the Medjai's. The Knight currently has 10 stacks on, so looking to get more onto that. Starting to really see the BLG game plan here, though, trying to play kind of 4-1, stretch out this team fighting comp from Weibo, but everybody's got to come a knocking to the Drake pit, because we have our next Mountain Drake on the board, and Viper is trying to get a bit sneakier with Shun burning it through. Weibo got to rush into this river to try and answer. They've got their big tank Scion to lead the way. Trying to get Jiejie close enough for a 50-50, but do you want a 50-50 into a Pantheon? Shun should be able to secure this if he does it right, and that he will at 78 HP. They get BLG on a soul point, and here comes the engagement. Huge encore from On, clips all of Weibo, and the solar eclipse rains down hellfire. Here comes Big coming in with the needlework as well to slow up Zika. None of these kills can really be confirmed outside one, but BLG will take it. They get a kill in soul pointed style.
On could seal the Ha Moon with that encore. My man hit a 5-man onto Weibo. Only one goes down, but BLG managed to get the soul point. Weibo don't win the Smite 50-50. And Slayer, I was really concerned about that fight. We talked about how in the last Dragon that we saw, Knight was completely split from the rest of BLG. Well, it was no different this time around. He's going all the way to loop around the blue buff. He's still not fighting with the team, but then manages to drop a little bit of damage here, set up with the encore. And I'm a little bit bummed that only one person died from that. That could have been like the big top one montage play that we have for our weekly top 5s.
Yeah, Quacks, what are these guys doing, man? They got to give us our clips. They're being a little too anticlimactic. Maybe we got some more fights coming. I will say,
too tanky to quote a particular mid laner.
There you go, too tanky, exactly. On has now hit a 4-man encore and a 5-man encore in the same game, so Anyone keeping stats of that, On is showing that, hey guys, I can adapt to any meta. Because we talked about it right before we got onto this, that On has been trying to buck that trend, playing the Shen support, prioritizing the Bard a lot more. Maybe we wanted to show out in the third series that he can also fit into the meta mold that is the bottom lane right now.
I mean, On makes his own meta, man. Like, this guy invented the Anivia support. He plays Shen. Like, what other unorthodox picks have we seen from the guy?
The Anivia, I mean, him and Elk were the Elise support, right? I would credit a lot of that over to On as well, being a driver of that. So there's a lot of champions. Are we about to caster curse him, though? Because he has to flash away from Jiejie getting caught trying to go on a warding mission. So doesn't hurt him too bad, but do lose that flash on the Seraphine. Quick pivot here, Quax, for you. Let's just soak in the fact that this is a 4-item Mel already on the map.
Yeah.
With the Crypt Bloom.
Yeah, and, you know, you did bring up the proto-build discussion that we weren't really able to touch on too much. Right. I feel like maybe now is a good time to talk about it. So, for those of you who don't know, like, every mid laner is building proto-build right now simply for the fact that Chovy is doing it. But
one man.
I did explain this for the the LNG EDG cast. This is kind of like Gale Force for mid laners, right? Gale Force, when it was for ADCs, it allowed them to play like a lot further up, a lot more aggressively. And so just having the ability to posture more aggressively is definitely something that...
Ooh, what about an aggressive TP, Quax?
Yeah, Bin is on the flank.
Oh, Elk, immediately McHale's from the arrow. Bin doesn't like the angle to go in just yet. He's going to rely on his front line to try and burn through Zika. That Crypt Bloom done for Knight. Should be able to get rid of this health bar pretty well. And Zika nearly drops the Solar Eclipse. Will not clip him for death, but it forces out the Wild Growth there from Hong. So that key support ultimate having to be used on the tank is pretty costly. And now BLG can reign supreme on the top river. Do they start a dance with the big purple worm? Yes, they do. And Jiejie thought he had time to go for his red buff, Quax, but now he's got to pace himself up towards this top river. When can Weibo get vision on this Baron? They have no idea how low it is. They're now just seeing that somebody's smacking onto it, but it's too low. On's going to use the Encore to try and zone. Jiejie can't get the steal in. Shun secures it. Cressiguard comes down. It won't protect Jiejie. He's the first one to drop into the fight. Chaos Storm providing some cover here for Weibo as Zika goes after Knight, but Viper does stay back. Flash out from Bin. Shun's going to be the sacrificial lamb. Elk, does he think about going over the wall? No, he has no vision on BLG. He'll take the one kill onto the jungler, but it's 4 members with the purple banner onto Bilibili Gaming.
Pretty close to the best case scenario for Weibo there, if I'm being completely honest with you. Best case would have been if they managed to get the Baron steal, of course, which Jiejie unfortunately was not able to do, but 1 for 1, and the kill going over to Elk certainly isn't bad at all. So, or no, Elk didn't get that kill, but still, Weibo managing to get that kill is definitely going to help them. It just feels like because Zika was burned down, forced to use that TP, and used all that ultimate earlier, like, you as Weibo didn't have a front line. So now, I feel like that is going to be the main reason why they can't immediately try and send it on toward the bot side, because not only have BLG gotten priority in mid with that Baron buff, but also because your front line really isn't looking too great right now. Zika is very fragile now that Bin is starting to get more items, so the tank shredding on BLG was on full display there, and with no flash, I mean, I feel like that Sion, if he steps 1 pixel too far, he's just going to get snipped and shredded.
And even outside of the magic resist he's trying to stack, there's an LDR done for this Ashe, who's at 3 items too, so gets to wail on Zika, get through virtually not a lot of armor. We're on to our Mountain Soul Drake here for BLG. All gas, no brakes, looking to play up tempo. Had a couple 50-50s not go Jiejie's way. Does Shun want to risk it here as he gets back into the pit? Bin goes over the wall. Good call, Quax, trying to find that flank angle. And boy, is he starting to entrap Weibo. They're going to go after On instead and just blow him up with Elk. Zika going to go down, though, as the Dragon gets discarded. As Jiejie with the Cressiguard and the Wild Growth tries to hold the front line. Bin into the stasis. The zombie nearly takes him out. But can Xiaohu get the kill? Yes! Shun finds the double onto Elk. And it has to be Viper stepping up and turning into a Gatling gun. Mowing down all of Weibo. Viper secures the fight win. Viper to secure the Mountain Soul for Bilibili Gaming.
And he buries his fangs in Weibo. Flash forward. It's a double for the Ashe. Targeted the entire game, but he manages to make up for it. Soul completed here for BLG. And I want to get another fight, another look at that fight there, Slayer. That was absolutely crazy. It was so close up until that crucial play from Viper, as we do see On immediately gets demolished. Bin having trouble trying to get impact on the backline, Zika's zombie is also doing more than his actual living body, so he manages to force BLG back, but then flashes to deny the stun from the Victor. We also saw that Jiejie kind of just left him alone. He was really focused on trying to take down Knight in that exchange, and look at the damage numbers. 9,000 damage just in that fight alone from the Ashe.
He did more damage than his entire team. I don't have the exact math, but my quick math says, holy moly, Viper. That is the fight. That is, you know, the reason that Bilibili Gaming wanted to bring a guy this caliber in. The safety he brings in lane is nice to play their aggressive style, but Viper hangs his hat on those disgusting clutch team fights. He's done it all his career, and he has this moment up against Weibo to get that Mountain Soul secured. Now BLG looking to take more map space up as they stack up as 4. Looking for this top lane tier 2 turret. They don't have Baron waves, though, which makes this a lot slower of a process compared to normal.
We don't really have wave clear here for the top side of Weibo, but no Baron buff either is on.
We'll give him that one.
Yeah, for every 5-man encore, there is a 0-man encore. You know, sometimes your show sells out. Sometimes there's no one buying the tickets. Okay, everyone's either showing up or they're just in the nosebleeds. But still though, I mean, that encore is on a relatively low cooldown, so you should have that up soon. Maybe Weibo, though, I want to capitalize on that timer as we do see Jiejie going in.
The double knock with the wild growth. Shun trying to use that unbreakable to hold the front line here as the Ashe arrow does go wide. Shun the target. The solar eclipse, though, gets so much value. Elka's dropped very, very low. Bin tries to get him with the needlework. Elka's get out, but Xiaohu you can't say the same for. And now it's the vision game to be played. Bin doesn't hit the next bout of needlework, but Elka's split up from the rest of his team. And the golden left hand looking to swat him down with a reflected Yunara W. The rest of Weibo to be rounded soon as they are running the wrong way down the highway. All they can run towards is their own demise. All Jiejie can do is try and stall out the BLG rampage because they're going to find themselves the first ace of the game.
It stalls them out a little bit. There's no really big waves coming here from the top side, but BLG still getting so much gold thrown into their carries. I mean, Bin now is at very close to 4 items. We didn't see the Gwen necessarily pop off in that fight, but the solo laners, I mean, look at the gold differences between them in this match. Yeah, I think that this was actually a pretty good call from Jiejie. Like, the encore isn't here. Zika has a pretty good angle. Zika going up there, I think, was maybe a bit of a mistake because then you give access to Viper and On to just survive, whereas I feel like if you had gone a little bit further down, you could have maybe tried to pivot onto them, but everyone ends up falling, right? BLG are just too strong at this point. The Mel and the Gwen are too healthy, and the scaling is just starting to overwhelm Weibo.
Quax, is that a reflect there from Knight, what you kids call aura farming?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. All right.
You would call it aura farming, too. I feel like that term has now kind of hit a point where people that aren't just, you know, Gen Z are starting to use it. Maybe I'm wrong. We do have some older people on the broadcast.
True,
so maybe we can ask them.
I've got to catch that term in with you, Quax, when I can, because most of the pairings, despite what people may think, I am the younger half, so... we are both Gen Z. We can lock into some aura farming. We're gonna start to some minion max here for BLG on the mid wave. The encore gonna hit onto 4 again from On. Jiejie forced to push the Crescent Guard out to get out of dodge. But here comes Bin on the flank, flashing after Jiejie with the needlework. Shun with the Grand Starfall comes through as well to jump right on top of Hog. And all the Weibo on the back foot once again as the might of Bilibili continues to be unrelenting. 2 more kills in the bag, and now they can turn their attention towards another Baron.
Yeah, you can see the teleport is also forced down there from Xiaohu, so he's going to have to respond to that. No possibility for a contest as looking over there. Congratulations to On. I believe that was 6,000 assists in the LPL. Pretty big milestone.
6,000. That's a huge mark there for On. And to do it in style with another multi-man encore. So aptly fitting. And there's the Baron secured there by Shun. Likely to be the final one to cap off. A little bit more of a roller coaster game here from BLG, but they've got everything in their arsenal to make it another win nonetheless.
4.2K, 4.5K. That is the goal difference between top and mid, and that is just absolutely absurd at this point. Bin is level 20. Knight is full build, 25 stacks on the Mage Ice as well, so those are like those are Avengers levels threats if ever I've seen one. Or two, I guess, as we do have the Elder coming up in about 40 seconds, but with the Baron here for BLG and just having those empowered minions, it's going to be really hard to wrestle control and priority away from them. So I would imagine BLG are just going to be setting up vision, looking to maybe try and pick off Weibo before they can even get to the pit, because at this point, if you're giving a 50-50 with this much of a gold lead and this much of an advantage,
that's a
I'm judging you. I don't think BLG will do that. I'm hoping BLG won't do that.
You know, maybe Shun wants to practice some more 50-50 smites, you know,
maybe.
just like in the practice tool. Yeah, hoping that definitely doesn't happen. All that I saw here is two things. Gwen, level 20 for Bin, and a Shadow Flame completed for a full build Knight. Good luck, Hong, surviving any of these engages, as he's actually trying to usher Weibo back through this bottom river. Shout out to our observers here, Quax, who are showing no vision in this river for Weibo. It is such a daunting task to try and just spot out BLG.
Oh, Jiejie
slowed. Going to come through here. Ash Arrow going to force out another Mikhails from Jiejie. The TP going to come through onto the bot wave. Encore just a bit early there, so On not going to hit it this time. Zika able to walk himself out. That's both bottom lane ultimates off the board here for BLG.
Yeah, sorry, that off from me, it wasn't like panic, it was just my Seraphine impression, as BLG are going to keep just trying to wrestle control of this area. That Tribush, crucially, is not warded. I'm wondering if anyone is actually in there to look for a flank. Okay, so no. They have just started up the Elder. Bin, though, is still looking for a flank.
All right, Bin on the top side. BLG going to usher themselves back towards their top laner and let the Elder aggro come back down. Weibo staying strong as 5, trying not to be flanked and assaulted on all fronts. They're pushed back into that Tri-Brush as Zik has to use this up onslaught defensively, but still gets double tap snared by On. Viper full build. Knight full build means no tank can ever survive the damage Bilibili bring. Frontline gone here for Weibo. Bin holding off the rest of Weibo in their own jungle. And now they can finally head right back to Old Greybeard to secure the best buff in League of Legends.
And look at their base. I mean, the super minions are doing work on the turrets. They're going to claim one, so one does actually go down. BLG stalled them out long enough. Zika going down. No frontline for Weibo. They can't contest, even if the waves were in like an advantageous spot for them. So, Xiaohu does dodge that, but it's Elder. He's not going to survive this, though.
Oh, Grand Starfall. He's got a flash and get a wild growth there from Hong just to get back towards his fountain. And with the Elder, there's nothing that will make a League of Legends player more confident than this buff here. The Bellows execute coming for Weibo as they look for a Hail Mary engage, but boy, does that one fall flat from Jiejie. The Encore to secure that one. The wave's soon to be cut down, and only a turret stands in the way of another BLG win. They'll start looking for maybe some stat pan to see if Weibo will come for one more fight, but the Solar Eclipse does ludicrous damage from Knight. He immediately picks up himself a triple and caps off a dominating BLG late game for a 1-0 lead.
And this is what we talked about. Weibo, they looked good in some sections of the game, Slayer, but just one tiny mistake, or I would actually say 2 tiny mistakes, and BLG are just able to wrestle control of this game from them. It was certainly not a clean win by any means, but BLG will take the 1-0 up in the series. The 2, by the way, if you were wondering for me, was when Zika, I mean, he gets chunked out from the TP that he throws himself in, and then also has to use the ult to get away. That just gives BLG the Baron. And then also, the more flashy one, the Viper double kill, of course. I mean, that classic Viper. You love to see it. Yup, there we go.
You love to see it. You love to see it. Hey, listen, good juju, right? If you've watched the LPL English podcast, I don't know if we've actually named it yet, so I'm going to call it that.
Nope.
Should check it out, by the way. I did rock this, but this is the first official Slayer wearing the BLG jersey on a cast, so it's kind of poetic, right, Quax? You mentioned the Viper flashy play there.
Yeah, I need to catch up on my LPL apparel. Like, I have multiple LCS
This is my only one.
Yeah, I have multiple LCS jerseys. I have a Damwon jersey from when they won Worlds in 2020. I have no LEC jerseys, nor will I ever get an LEC jersey. I also don't have any LPL jerseys, so I need to get on that. As an LPL caster, I feel like I'm not representing the region that I have been indoctrinated into nearly enough as I should.
Well, Quax, you got more time. It took me far too long to get my own sort of drip here. So I'll give you some time, but I'll definitely be checking back in with you on those ones. Nonetheless, though, I do want to spend, a bit of time now before as we get into this post-game stuff, check back on what you were expecting, what you wanted to see from Weibo, because I do think in this game, there were some positives, and I feel like you can kind of write off the terrible start they had with just like an unlucky look, right? So what are the positive things you saw from Weibo here, Quax, in this game?
I feel like a lot of the positive stuffs that we saw really did pertain to Elk. Like, we were very concerned about this player going into this series just simply because he hadn't been looking good in the 2 series we'd seen from him so far, and he was facing off against BLG, which is a scary prospect for even a big performing AD carry, and Elk certainly hasn't been, I think, performing to the standard that a lot of us expected from him, and certainly not to the standard he showed in Split 1. And I'm pleased to say, him and Hung, despite the tough matchup that we kind of highlighted in Champ Select, did pretty well at being able to match Viper and On. So credit over to him. Jiejie as well. It started off really slow for the Xin Zhao, but he did manage to, in that mid game, make a lot of impact known to have, to give
Sorry,
Weibo
not to
fights.
distract you.
No, I mean, Viper's damage is a big highlight here. I mean, 51.2k, almost 10,000 damage in one fight is absurd, to be honest with you. So really big shout out to Viper. Again, it wasn't the flashiest beginning for him, as I think that him and Elk were kind of going band for band, but that double kill just altered the entire trajectory, I feel, of the matchup between the two, and frankly, the game.
Couldn't agree more there, Quax. And yeah, it's such a fun convo with Viper, because I think some people would argue in Split 1 that he started out kind of like slow. I want to put in quotations because I think a lot of teams' game plans early on in Split 1, and we saw a bit of it in this game for Weibo, like you're mentioning, was like, okay, we just need to target Viper. This guy's too big of a threat to like leave untouched, too big of a threat to like allow him to just farm up and do his thing. But BLG were able to benefit off of a lot of the back of that because they could just clean up for Viper, being able to draw out so many of the extended plays to get him killed, to come back and win. And it's fitting in this game we saw, like, even this early play, right? It's Viper getting targeted, he does die, and BLG clean up the rest of it. But as we get later in this fight, you're going to see Weibo having to ignore him more and more, and he comes back to punish them, the very thing that they were afraid of.
Yeah, and, I think it is definitely telling that the first big highlight we get here is when everyone is like level 9, level 10. It was a relatively slow early game in terms of like actual consequential action, but I think that BLG were just a lot better at being able to set up their scaling threats. We saw how strong Knight managed to get and how impactful he was around those mid-game teamfights, and then the Gwen just kind of exploded out of nowhere. We had very little time to talk about the top lane matchup, but Bin had some really shiny moments in this game, so it just feels like BLG were better prepared, even though it was a very slow early game, not something we're used to seeing from BLG. We have been seeing, I feel, more proactive and more clean late games as the year has gone by. This was something that we were really insisting on them trying to get down when we were in Split 1 and they were having those struggles back then. They seem to have fully, managed to actually get to that point where 5v5s are like a legitimate strength of this team, where they can have the macro sense in the late game to actually challenge the best teams, not just in the LPL, but in the world. And they're hoping to keep up that form, maintain that form for hopefully the next international. But this was certainly a, like I said, slower game for them. So who knows? Maybe in game 2 we get more of that high octane style we were kind of preaching about in the pre-show.
Yeah, it definitely felt like this was the most meta-read BLG game for the most part, with the fact that, you had the Pantheon, Ashe Seraphine. I would actually argue Mel, I guess, is the most in the meta she's been, I would say, for a mid laner. So for Knight to pick that one up as well, so we'll see in game 2 if they go back towards more BLG-esque style. But Quax, the tough question I have for you now is, who would you name player of the game? Because I think either major carry deserves a shout here, because you see the Knight stat line, it's pretty bolsterous, but then obviously like damage numbers, the big winning fights here for Viper. Where's your head at, my friend?
I actually feel it's tough, but I'm gonna give it over to Knight. I feel like this is a player who, like we kind of said earlier, from what we expect of this guy, which is just utter and total domination, we haven't really seen that up to this point in Split 2. Like, a lot of people were, yep, there we go, concerned about his performance at first stand relative to expectations and also just relative to what his teammates were doing at that tournament as well. To see him pop off and have a vintage night carry performance is so good, I feel, because this is a player who, at his best, is legitimately, you know, first, second best mid laner in the world, and always is a joy to watch.
So Knight, I mean, yeah, 13-0-11. Hard to pick away from that one for MVP. Even if I do love my boy Viper, definitely deserves some votes. Hopefully he got some. We didn't get to see that graphic. That's totally fine. Knight picks up that MVP. BLG does get the game win. Weibo with some good looks here, so let's see if they can carry some of the momentum they had in Game 1 into Game 2, because no team wants to start out Group Ascend like Team WE at 0-3 or potentially 0-4, and that's where Weibo are heading. We, though, are, of course, heading towards another short intermission on the other side. Game 2